Hey guys, welcome. My name is Al. I'm a real estate videographer based out of Vancouver, BC, and my company is called Best Cut Films. I've been doing real estate photography and videography for a couple of years now, and today I'm going to talk about how to shoot professional real estate videos. I'm going to be sharing with you guys the equipment that I use, some tips and tricks, different camera movements, how to set your camera, your gimbal, and yeah, let's get started. So let's start off with the gears. One of the questions I get asked the most is, what is the basic camera gear do I need in order for me to shoot a decent real estate video? In my opinion, if you're a beginner with not a lot of experience and budget, you can get started with an entry-level camera body like a Canon Rebel T7 and a wide-angle lens like the Tokina 11-16 f2.8 lens. As far as the camera gear that I currently use, I shoot my real estate videos with the Canon EOS R6 that's capable of shooting 4K in 60 frames per second. The reason why I recommend shooting with Canon is because they have a really good in-camera colors, so you don't have to do a lot of work in post-production. Now when it comes to lenses, you want to get a wide-angle lens in order for you to show the space that you're shooting properly and make sure everything's in frame. If you're shooting with a full frame camera, you can go anywhere between 14 to 18 millimeters. I also recommend getting a 2.8 aperture lens because there will be cases where you're going to be shooting in low light conditions like a closet or a basement. I personally use the Canon 16 to 35 millimeter f2.8 lens. I find the 16 millimeter focal length to be just wide enough that I'm not getting any type of distortions. And the ability for me to zoom in up to 35 millimeter for capturing details is another reason why this has become my go-to lens when filming my projects. Another very important equipment you'll need is a motorized gimbal like the Webuild 2 by Julian. I personally have been shooting with gimbals made by Julian ever since I made the switch from mechanical stabilizers to the motorized gimbals. I first started with the Crane 2 when I landed my first real estate gig. I then upgraded to the Crane 2S, and right now I'm shooting with the Webuild 2, which I absolutely love. Okay, now let's jump to the camera settings. If you want to deliver the best possible video to your clients, then I recommend getting a camera that can shoot at least 4K. I believe anything higher than 4K, like 6K or 8K, is not really needed, since most of the videos will be watched on cell phones or computers mainly. And for the frame rate, I like to shoot at 60 frames per second. Shooting at this frame rate helps me smooth out my shot furthermore in post by slowing the footage down by 40% when I edit in 24 frames per second timeline. Now for shutter speed. If you're shooting at 60 frames per second, of course you want to keep the 180-degree rule of doubling your shutter speed. So at 60 frames per second, I shoot at 1/125 shutter speed. For ISO, I like to keep it as low as possible depending on the light situation in the room. So anywhere from 100 ISO to 2000 ISO is where I play around. For aperture, I like to keep it at 2.8 when shooting indoors or up to 4 when I'm shooting outdoors. So when I'm outside, I always put on a variable ND filter. For picture profile, I like to shoot at C-Log mode because log mode is primarily designed to maximize dynamic range. It makes sense to shoot in log in tricky lighting conditions where you expect there to be both extremely bright and dark parts in the image. For focus, I like to keep it at manual, so I just adjust my focus on every room. I normally set the focus on the back of the wall or the center of my frame or wherever I want my audience eyes to be focused on. Technically, not everything will be in focus the whole time, but with a wide angle lens, you can get away with this since it's going to be hard to tell if something is out of focus. Okay, now let's move on to gimbal settings and the different movements that you can do with your gimbal. When it comes to setting up your gimbal, it's important to regularly have it calibrated. A very nice feature of the Webuild 2 is that calibration is a lot easier and faster. With your camera properly mounted and balanced, you simply push a button and the gimbal will do all the work for you. I also like to adjust my gimbal settings to low. And to do that with the Webuild 2, I don't even have to go through the app or connect it to my computer. I can simply use the touchscreen and adjust it directly through the gimbal. I have my shooting mode most of the time on PF mode or pan follow mode, except when I have to shoot in straight line. Then I quickly switch over to lock mode. Okay, now let's discuss camera movements. First off, you want to properly balance your camera on the gimbal. To avoid the swimming motion on your footage, when your footage is bobbing up and down when you're moving with your gimbal, it's also important to know how to properly walk with your gimbal. And this is called the ninja walk. With the ninja walk, you want to keep your knees slightly bent, your muscles tense, your gimbal close to your chest, and take small steps gently from your heel to the ball of your foot. This will take some practice, but your videos will get smoother and smoother each time. Here are some of my favorite camera movements when shooting real estate. Let's start with the most common, which is the Dolly movement, where you're moving either forward or backward into the space. So a tip if you want to make your Dolly shot more dramatic and less basic is to use the joystick on your gimbal to add some tilting movement to the shot. You can start with your camera pointing either up or down and slowly move forward, and at the same time tilting your camera until it's completely straight. Next we have the tracking movement. This is very similar to dollying, only you're moving your camera either left to right or right to left instead of in and out. Tracking can be very useful when shooting details or as a transition between two shots. For example, you can start with a dolly shot, finish the first shot by panning away to one direction, and for the next shot you can do a track move, but make sure you're still moving to the same direction as your last shot. And there you go, a very effective in-camera transition. Next we have the pedestal. This is when you move your camera vertically up or down, similar to the crane shot, but instead of using heavy machinery like those huge crane with counterweights and all that, you're using your whole body to move the gimbal. So you're squatting up and down and using your arms to extend it even more. So a little tip, instead of just moving up and down, add some panning movement to your shot. This way you can show more of the space that you're showcasing. Now these are some of the basic camera movements that I like to use when shooting real estate. With the current gimbal technology, you can be very creative with your shots and experiment with different movements. So there you have it. Hopefully you guys find this video helpful. You already know the gears you need, the different camera settings, gimbal settings, the different movements that you can try on your first or next project. So what are you waiting for? Go out there and film.